I got a big one too.
All right. See, Sandy knows how to do it.
I got tea and coffee already. I'm like, I need it all.
Oh, wow.
That's right. Everybody hold up your coffee cups and be like, okay, coffee in the morning. That's right. All right, so good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Saturday Morning Mastermind. As you can see, we're all sitting here. We've got our coffee. We're getting all ready to rumble this morning. And hopefully you're all having a wonderful morning as well. And you found your way to our event page. If that's the case, then go ahead and jump down there below the video and just comment and say, hey, I'm here. I'm hanging out. And, you know, I just learned something just the other day. And so I'm going to implement this right now. But I learned that apparently if you're on a mobile, you can't see the video on the event page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the YouTube link here, I think. Let's see. YouTube page. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to grab the YouTube link and post it on the event page. That way anybody who's mobile can actually watch it. Okay. On mobile. Here we go. Okay, so maybe I have failed to make that happen previously, and so from this point on, I'm going to make it a point to remember to do that so that anybody can watch from any device from this point forward. So anyway, good morning. I'm Samantha Studebaker-Carl coming at you from beautiful Southwest Georgia. I'm here with all my wonderful lady friends, and I'm just going to let everybody jump out, introduce themselves, tell us where you're hanging out from, and then we'll jump into this conversation about how to overcome stress, anxiety, worry, and that sort of thing without having to resort to drugs. So jump on in, ladies.
Well, I will, since I'm already unmuted. This is Vicki DeVore. I'm coming to you from Houston, Texas today, and I'm just glad to be here. Looking forward to this topic, so thanks, Samantha.
Good morning. Sandy Root here, and I'm in New Jersey today. My mom's again. So, yeah, I'm excited to be here and discuss this topic. Good stuff.
Good morning. My name's Danielle DeLyons. I'm out in Anaheim, California, near Disneyland, and it's going to be a great day. Excited to get going with this.
I bet it's warmer there than it is here. I've got my sweater on. I'm in Boulder, Colorado, and we're starting to feel a little bit of fall here. I'm Catherine Clement, and I'm so glad that you came to be with us today.
Looked like Samantha fell off and came back on, so maybe she was having some technical difficulties.
Maybe the train is coming through.
Maybe.
This week we started chapter 12, and we actually have in our Google community we have a pre-mastermind discussion where we go ahead and read ahead on the chapter and then make comments or write stuff about it, and we're hoping to get more audience participation, not just the panelists, but people that are you know, just in the community. We'd love to hear your thoughts about it. That's sort of why we instituted that. So please participate in that and read ahead, and we'd love to have you on the panel itself. If you want to be on the panel, just contact one of us and we'll get you on here. It might seem a little bit intimidating, but it's really not all that bad. It's really easy. You just have to click a button and start talking. We're going to talk about how to get rid of stress, how to avoid stress without having to resort to pharmaceuticals or alcohol or food. There's lots of stress relieving techniques that we can turn to, so we're going to try to come up with some healthier ones today. Is she back?
No, I just sent her a message on Facebook. I'm trying to find the pre-discussion, what's it called? So we can just maybe go read some of those, maybe?
There she is.
Okay. Here she comes.
Ta-da!
I could sing for you while we wait. Maybe not.
I know you don't want me to sing. That is not my strong point.
Well, I can read some of these questions while we wait on the pre-mastermind discussion just to get things bubbling in people's heads. So questions to get you started. And this is from, if you're watching and haven't had a chance to read, it's from the new Psycho-Cybernetics in Chapter 12, the page number 224 and 234 on the PDF version. So some questions that were discussed in the pre-discussion mastermind this week. What's it called? Pre-mastermind discussion. Are what anxiety, stress, worries, etc. have you struggled with in your life? What did you do to overcome these situations in the past? Do you believe you can overcome these emotions without drugs? And then what do you think about Dr. Maltz's suggestions that you can simply ignore the external signals that cause you to experience worry, stress, and anxiety? Which one of the suggestions from this section do you think would work best for you? Is she back? She's back. I was just reading the questions from the discussion while you were away.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't know what the heck happened. On my end, it said that the video call ended, and then it was having all these problems loading back up and everything, but then I would show back up and it would say it was live, and you guys were all frozen pictures, and I was like, oh crap, did we lose the whole thing? But so it was just me then, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, so you just start. Did you guys already introduce yourselves and everything?
Yes.
Cool. Cool. Okay, so awesome. So you were reading the questions in the pre-mastermind discussion, and you know, I think that this would be a good idea for us to just kind of share our own personal experiences relating to you know, what we've kind of discussed here, what these questions are. And by the way, thanks Jason for posting those on the event page. That's really awesome. And I just want to welcome everybody who is hanging out with us. Good morning, Gretchen. Good morning, Don, Farhat, Alberto, better now than ever. Hey, if you want to post your name, that would be awesome. That way we aren't calling you better now than ever. I mean, if you want to be called that, that's great, but it'd be awesome to know your name as well. And so anyway, just welcome to everybody. But yeah, so okay, I kind of lost my train of thought when you know, when my Hangout went all wonky on me. But how about, do you guys want to go ahead and start and, you know, share your thoughts on those questions, and let me kind of gather my my brain back together, and maybe want to jump out, share any of your experiences as far as you know, what kind of stresses and anxieties you had throughout your life and what you've done to overcome them. Anyone?
Yeah, I'll start. I'll get this ball rolling. All right. Well, yeah, automatically I think, you know, about a big portion of my life where, you know, I was, as a child, I was pretty anxious and very worry prone, and, you know, it was like as soon as I could, you know, get my hands on other substances, that was where I went. And you know, many of you know I did have trouble with alcohol for a few years and back in the day, and so that was my way to cope with feelings that were uncomfortable, because I never knew, I never learned really how to. And actually in my first year of undergrad of college, I guess, what was I, 17, and it was like my first time away from home, and my parents had just gone through some like separation, and I was just so depressed, and I didn't really know why at the time. And I actually was taking some medications for that, pharmaceuticals, and soon after, I was like, I don't want to be on medications. Like it really felt like it was just numbing me, and that I wasn't really addressing the issues. And it's like this. It's just covering up symptoms, but it's not really addressing anything. What the underlying causes. And I think, I didn't get a chance to write on the discussion, but I think, Samantha, you were writing some things along those lines, how it's just covering up things and not really addressing the underlying issues. And then, over time, I just realized, that these substances, alcohol, whatever else, were the same thing. They were just covering things up, and inside it was like things were just getting worse because I wasn't really addressing them. I was just covering them up for years and years. And then, I guess some things from this chapter were like changing habits and stuff like that. And, I really had to just start with really looking at myself and where all these anxieties and worries and depressions were coming from. And meditation helped me a lot, and yoga, and just, changing my habits, just really changing my mindset and stuff like this. The masterminds we're on, reading these kinds of books really are a huge part of the shift in my life. So, just for me, it was starting changing my habits, and it's can be difficult in the beginning because you've already created an old habit that's sort of there, rigid, and being patient and cracking through step by step. But yeah, that's all I'll say for now. Thanks.
I'll jump in really quick. I can relate in certain ways. I never had substance abuses until I got older, and I got very, very sick. And all of a sudden I found myself on all kinds of medications and became a medication junkie. And it altered who I was for a really long time. And I didn't like that because it was just masking other problems that I was dealing with my health and my body, and I got better over time, and I weaned myself off of all those medications. And just recently had a lot of problems with my leg. I'm just putting it out there. And I had to go back on some medication. And, it's interesting, you get different suggestions of how to deal with it. And, I don't want to be on any medications because it does mask the real problem. So in learning how to cope with that or fix it, that's where we need to get to in any situation, whether it be a physical ailment or a mental ailment. And it does affect us in so many different ways, So I do a lot of mental exercises, mentally seeing myself not in pain and not hurting, or being able to walk or being able to do things. And on those days when I keep my mind there, I'm much more healthier. But it took time to do that, because then you have other problems that come from that, other behavior problems that we deal with. And so in the chapter, when it talks about how children and doctors are so easy, especially like with children, they're so quick to put children for behaviors on medications, it alters the true being of who you are. And there's ways to overcome things. It's just finding that place inside of yourself for me to visualize what I can do to change it.
I'll jump out. One thing that kind of has come to my mind recently is, of course, I probably have a tendency towards more, if it's anxiety, it's a lot of times more fear-based, about either fear of being abandoned, left, or some of those things. And I'm reading another book. I won't go ahead and divulge any of that right now. Y'all can get in touch with me later on it. But one of the things that has come out of it is that by being in a state of fear, what came to me is that fear is like the gatekeeper of sadness as a basis. And last night I was at a get-together, and the attorney was saying that in all of his time with dealing with and counseling people or representing people, especially if there has been substance abuse or almost anything, either substance abuse, anger issues, whatever it is that when he gets to the real root of the problem or the challenge that the person is having, is that it's almost due to an unresolved issue. Sometimes it can be, like I say, fear of abandonment, abuse, any of the things that we all go through as humans. And so to me that was very enlightening, and I kind of jokingly said this morning on here, because I almost got up a little bit late, and what I have found a lot of times is sometimes these emotional eating, that comfort food, things like that. And in reality, and like Danielle said, is that, and like even Sandy said, she had a great post on her Facebook wall about that. Sometimes we really have to be willing to do the work and kind of go through that, because I think I read something else that said, and basically until you learn a lesson, or if there's something that's coming up in your life, until you're ready to face it and work through it, it's going to keep coming back. So that's kind of where I'm at. Honestly, I did not get this entire chapter read, but I think I totally do agree that it's through self-examination, healing, and the willingness to start incorporating some new habits, which is going to be a little difficult, because another post I saw earlier was talking about how the devil, really wants you to keep focused on your past and wants to keep bringing that up to you. And it's up to us to be willing to say, back off, I'm going to face this, I'm going to work through it. And so by building those habits, that's how we can do that. So that's just kind of my 2 cents for today.
Yeah, feel free to share that book, Vicki. Sorry, I had a brain lapse there for a second. Our mastermind is open to all books that are self-help and working on ourselves. So don't feel like you have to not stay.
Well, I didn't want to step over on any of what we're studying, but this particular book, and there's a great meditation that he has to go with it, is by Panache Desai, D-E-S-A-I, and the book is called Discovering Your Soul's Signature. And I actually came across it because I saw a thing for Oprah's Super Soul Sunday, where he was discussing or where he defined what the soul is, and it just really resonated with me. So I went out and I bought the book, and I'm still on it's a 33-day journey, and I'm still on day 1 and day 2. But when I got to the sadness part and reading through fear and the way he addressed that, and then when I got to the chapter on sadness, it made so much sense, because there's so many times that we think it's fear. But by his explanation is fear is being that gatekeeper, because fear does not want us to move forward. And like I say, I highly recommend it. You can find some of his other stuff out on YouTube, and like I said, his Facebook page. I've just been really impressed with it, so I'm incorporating that in what I'm reading now too.
That's awesome, Vicki. And feel free to share the link to the page that you found, or the page you shared with me the other day for that 30-day thing. And in the Mindset Mastery Collective.com in the community. That way it'll be available for everybody. You just put it under resources for the category.
I can do that.
Yeah, I mean, and anytime anybody finds something that is helping them, particularly if it's right on topic with what we're discussing, that's what our community is for. It's for everyone to share their experiences, share what's working for them, what isn't working for them, the things that you're going through, and, is what we're talking about helping you? And your insights on what we're talking, what we're reading about, and that sort of thing. So, it just happens that this is the book that we're going through right now, but I know all of us are reading other books above and beyond. And, just recently I've been reading, I've got 3 different things that have kind of come together and said the same message to me, which is, interesting, because that's what happens when you start doing personal development and you really start digging into what it is you really feel, deep down in. You're trying to figure these things out, and you're reading one book, and then you're looking at another one, and then somebody posts a comment, and then you read another book, or you have something that comes up, is that all of a sudden you'll get all these signals from multiple different places just confirming what it is you're working on. So I encourage you all to, just keep reading everything that you can read, everything that pops up in your life saying, hey, check this out. You probably, whatever you're going through right now, this can help, and it probably will. But I want it real quick. Jason was posting on the page, so let me just read his comments here real quickie. Okay, so Jason says, he says, just want to say how I have noticed that using substances is so common among the masses that people think they are actually helping you by offering them to you. That's interesting. I actually had a situation a number of years ago when I was working at this pet salon, and I was at the time I was going through some really difficult depression. It was really bad. I wasn't happy in that place in my life, in my career path. I was dissatisfied with the people that I was working for, and and just there's just all these different things that were going on at the time that was causing me all of this just dark heaviness on me. It was stress financially. It was frustration with my work, and frustration with myself because I wanted to go out and make my own way, and I couldn't at the time. There's all these different things, and I just couldn't get myself out of that kind of depressed kind of place. But yet I've always been a person who just absolutely, I just do not want to have anything to do with drugs. There's they'll sit there and tell you that this drug is going to fix this one thing and help you with this one thing, and then they give you this like 10,000-mile long list of all the things it's going to do to you, in some bad way. And I'm like, I'm not willing to make that trade, not when it's something that is a mental issue with me personally, and guys, and I'm not condemning anybody out there who, is taking some sort of a drug in order to overcome something. I'm sure that for some people that can be very helpful, but for me, I'm very anti-drugs. And so when I was going through all of this and telling myself, okay, I can overcome it because I know I just need to figure out how to work through it. And but one of the ladies that was working with me, she was about, I don't know, 8 or 10 years older than I was, and she's like, this drug is helping me. It's made a huge difference for me. And she was telling me all about it, and she's trying to convince me that I needed to get on it. And I'm like so completely anti, no, I don't, I'm not going to do it. And she's just like, yeah, and then everybody I would talk to, they'd be like, yeah, you should take that drug. And I'm like, no, But, and it's all a matter of personal it's all a matter of personal preference, really. I mean, how do you want to work through your problems? And like Vicki was just saying, is that, once you realize you've got something going on in your life, when you can identify what that is and work through it and find a way to work through it, of course, that's the way it works with everything. Any kind of situation you have in your life, once you can identify the problem, admit you have a problem, then you have a starting point from which you can actually overcome that problem, because then you can read the personal development books, you can plug into audios, you can connect with other people who have overcome the situation that you are trying to overcome, and work through it. And so of course, as time went on, I realized that I had to make some changes in my life because I was so upset in that situation. And when I did that, when I made those changes and I started working on myself, that was when I started to come out of that depression. But it's taken a lot of years, because that's one of those things that, I don't know, I hate to sit here and say it's like genetic from my family, but the truth is that when you are in a family where there is a lot of depression, then you not only that depression that you deal with on a personal level yourself, but have other people around you that are dealing with that depression in their own in different ways. And of course, as you grow up with these attitudes, like we've talked about before in some of the other trainings, is that your family and your teachers and your pastor and whoever else you're around the most when you're young is who programs you to be the way that you are. And so, you know, there was a lot of depression in my family, so that was something that I had to struggle with for a lot of years. And if it wasn't for personal development, then I don't know where I'd be now. I really don't. But anyway, that's my thoughts on that. But let's read some more of what Jason has to say. Okay, so Jason also says, so true, Danielle. I agree. Drugs do mask rather than allow you to get to the heart of the matter. And then he also says, very powerful, Vicki. I think the fear of repeating the same failure doesn't go away until we do the work to work through it by taking responsibility for our own actions logically, so we have a foundation from which to base our new decisions. It can seem difficult and even painful, but much better than living in misery for years. It's so worth it to put in the work. And absolutely, Jason, you know, and that's kind of one of the things that I really wanted to say about or talk about today was is that's the key. You know, I mean, so many folks are so quick to jump on drugs because they don't want to do the work. They just want it to be fixed. They don't want to think about it. They just want it to be over with and they don't have to deal with it. And unfortunately, you know, like we've all said here, is that the drugs, all they do is numb you. You know, they just, and in here it talks about how tranquilizers work because they greatly reduce or eliminate our own response to disturbing outside stimuli, but tranquilizers do not change the environment. The disturbing stimuli are still there. We are still able to recognize them intellectually, but we do not respond to them emotionally. And I think that that's sad, you know? I mean, if we just like putting a Band-Aid on a broken arm, you know, it's sure it may stop the bleeding for a minute, but it's not going to fix the core problem. And I hate to see so many people out there just on these drugs, just numb to the world, because, you know, if you're numb to all of the stuff that you are frustrated and having anxiety about and stress and all these things, and they numb you to that, then you're also being numb to all the amazingness in the world and all of the beauty in the world and all the love in the world. And, you know, and you can't fully experience life if you aren't experiencing those things as well. And so when in this chapter, I just love all of these different suggestions that it makes, and I kind of want to go over each one of the ones that are in the section that we have, you know, that we're going to read. But before I do that, does anybody else have anything that you want to add? I mean, we've kind of covered a little bit here, so I don't want to miss anybody's thoughts.
I'll step out for a second. I was so blessed yesterday to spend the afternoon with my grandson, my daughter, and my grandson, my youngest one. And I just got a good reminder, like you were saying, Samantha, you know, messages come to you from many places, and sometimes you get the same message, or like one time I got like the same message 3 times in an hour or something. It was crazy. You know, things just really start getting very synchronistic for you as you are asking the right questions. But spent the day with him, and you know, we've been talking recently about how a lot of these fears and anxieties come from things that happened to us in our childhood, you know, our inner child. And so I just want to remind everybody out there, because for many, many years, at least in my generation, if you had problems with your inner child, you had to go see a psych and, you know, get on drugs or go through years and years and years of deep intensive training, and it was very painful, and who wants to do that crap, right? So, oh, sorry. So, I just want to remind everybody, yesterday I watched my 3-year-old grandson tumble down. I think it's maybe 7 or 8 steps there. He fell from the top. I mean, just bam, and down on his head. It was brutal. And, you know, he was just screaming. He started getting an egg on his head and all that. We didn't know what had happened to him. And then he screamed at the top of his lungs, big old alligator tears. Of course, his mama picked him up and loved him and held him, and he was fine. And then he was off. And then like an hour later, he was up on top of this bench and tumbled off. We thought he'd broken his arm. I mean, his arm was all swollen up. He's just a mess. But you pick him up and you love him, and 2 minutes later, maybe not even 2 minutes, he's fine. So as we go back and try to heal these inner children, I just want to remind everybody, sometimes all you have to do is acknowledge the boo-boo and give it a kiss, and it's fine. You don't you can be off onto your other stuff. You don't have to drag it out for years and years. So I'll just throw that in there. We seem to be freezing up a lot. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
I heard you just fine, Catherine. I don't know. I see a lot of frozen. Is it still frozen on this end also?
I can hear you, Danielle.
I
can see you.
Yeah, I can see you too. I think Samantha's frozen.
Okay, here we go. Everybody's coming back to life now.
It looks like Samantha's the one that's frozen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that's, you know, it was a good reminder for me. And also, I want to mention something about perception, because that's kind of what I use to handle stress, is I change my perception about it. And that can be on a mental level or on a physical level, because when you're really stressed, if you pay attention to how your body feels, the physical sensation in your body, you know, you get like that thing in your gut, you know, and then your chest gets a little tight, and you have these little tinglies running all through your body. I mean, I'm sure you guys all feel that in your body, that feeling of that stress. But think about those actual feelings, and then see if there's not something else in your life, another time, another situation, that you had those same feelings in your body, but it wasn't stress. It was like, I don't know, going to Think and Grow Rich, maybe sexual excitement. You can get those same kind of feelings, you know, when you're going on your first date, you know, but look at the pleasurable things involved with that. So I think sometimes if we can take those physical sensations and remember another time when we've had them, a pleasant time, and start, like I have to do that with my body's pain, you know, because I have these sensations going on, and I have to assign them a different meaning. That's basically what I do. I change my perception and I assign them a different meaning. And I think that that helps. And then mentally, you can kind of do the same thing. You can, like, I think I've told this before, I won't go into the whole thing, but when I was a nurse, the first year of nursing, I had many, many, many babies die with me on my shift. I worked night shift. And I was going to quit nursing. And I thought, my goodness, this is not for me. I'm doing something really, really wrong. I don't know what I'm doing, but something's not right. And then this nurse that had been working in the unit for 20-some years came up to me. I was literally crying one night, and I told her I'm going to quit. And she put her arm around me, and she's like, "No, you can't quit. These babies come to you because they want to leave this world in peace, and you have the most peaceful. You seem to be okay with death and allowing people to cross, and you're able to comfort them, and you're able to comfort their families, and they have chosen you to transition through." And I'm telling you, it changed my life. It rocked my world. I never looked at that situation the same way again. So sometimes you just have to change your perception, whether it's your thought about a situation or the actual physical feelings that you're feeling. Just, change channel. I'll let someone else talk now. Are we all back? Is everybody live now?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, cool. Oh, silly internet. Gosh, Catherine, that is so profound, and I can completely relate to you on that. And of course, I was in the pet industry, and that's a completely different industry, obviously. But I had some animals that died when I was working. When that was really, really difficult, because they were just these kind of random things that happened where I was washing the golden retriever, had him in the bathtub, given him a bath. He seems all relaxed, and then all of a sudden he just collapsed in the tub, and it turned out that he had a heart attack. and I was like, oh my God, you know. And that was really, it was a stressful thing because, you know, being in that industry, I mean, you know, as a person who works in that position, you obviously have a deep love and caring for animals, right? And you, Catherine, you obviously have a deep care for people if you work in the healthcare industry. And so you know, just knowing or having that experience and yeah, I mean, what did I do wrong? What could I do different? How, you know, I like went out after that and I was like studying all this stuff on canine CPR and you know, of course it never happened to me again, but it was one of those things where it was horrible. And so I can't even imagine what you were going through with all the babies. And but yeah, switching your perspective, and that is so key to every situation. And I think that's actually, is that one of the things that it talks about in here? Maybe it's in a different book that I was reading that, or maybe it's further ahead in the chapter. But let's go ahead and start talking about some of these techniques in here in the book. Can everybody still see me? Looks like Danielle's frozen and Vicky's frozen. Or your pictures or something. Okay. All right, cool. I see thumbs up, so we'll go. All right, so in here, of course, it talks about, you know, of course, one of the keys is to, of course, recognize what it is that is the problem, what's causing you to have the, you know, the stress, the anxiety, the overreaction, if you will. And that's, of course, what he talks about, is that when you have these feelings come over you, it's because you have conditioned yourself over time to react in a certain way to certain stimuli. And so, of course, he says in here that over-response is a bad habit that can be cured. And of course, what happens, he says, you know, just as an example of he talks about the telephone ringing. He says, you know, if you can kind of correlate that whatever you're experiencing that causes you to, you know, have these stress and anxiety feelings is similar to what the telephone does. When the telephone rings, you have this immediate response to want to go and answer the telephone, right? It's like just automatic. It rings, you get up, you go answer it. Doesn't matter what time it is, doesn't matter what you're doing. You could be in the middle of something very, very specific that you're doing, and when that telephone rings, you just instantly respond. And so what he's talking about here is that, you know, with your emotions and your stresses and anxiety, it's the same thing. Something will happen. You know, let's just give an example of, you know, in relationships, this happens a lot with husbands and wives, is they will say something that over time you have this automatic response that you always do, or you always say. You know, the husband will say something, or let's just give an example. The husband leaves the toilet seat up, right? And what happens? You go in the bathroom, the toilet seat up, you're like,
We're having horrible connection problems.
Yeah, she's
today.
frozen again.
Yeah.
It looks like Vicky's frozen. Sandy, you look okay, Sandy. Vicky, are you there? Vicky looks frozen too.
Vicky's frozen.
Yep. Am I frozen to you?
Nope, you're good. Me,
Yeah.
you, and Sandy, we're all.
I love Samantha's frozen face right now.
I know. Oh my goodness, these hangouts are brutal with this technology sometimes. Catches you like in the most awkward phase, you know.
You know, she was bringing up a really great subject of how we are conditioned to behave by outside responses in relationships. And when she was talking about that, I was just thinking of how yesterday I was having a discussion with my boyfriend, and he anticipated I was going to behave a certain way, and I caught it in time. And this is a key. And I caught it, and I stopped, and I did exactly what the exercise said. I got very peaceful and calm, and he wasn't ready for that. And it changed the whole dynamics of the situation. And we can do that at any given time. We can change things very quickly if we realize that we all behave certain ways. And we can create different circumstances. We don't do not need to keep falling into the same patterns. I don't know if you guys could relate to that in that way, but I did yesterday.
I definitely relate to that, Danielle. I think we do. We, especially with family members or lovers, you know, we do. We tend to get into these patterns, and it's actually kind of hilarious when you can do what you did and step back and take a look at it and see how much control you really have over that situation. It's very empowering. Sandy, you've dealt with some of that sort of stuff recently. You can chime in here.
Yeah, I was gonna chime in, because I'm going through it now. I've been here with my mom for a couple of weeks, and we push those same buttons, and it's a challenge. But yeah, I'm watching myself and really trying to change those patterns, those automatic responses and reactions, and retraining how I'm even perceiving things from the past. Like maybe that's a story that maybe I made up in that moment that comforted me, but maybe that's not the real story, and maybe I can just switch that story, like make up a new story that's gonna make things better now. And because then she, of course, has her own story about things that happened, and then that's where we're butting heads, and it's like, maybe just let it go and let her have her story, and make my story better so that our relationship can be better. So, yeah, good points.
Oh, can I jump back in on that one, Sandy? Because that's so right on point that we do that over and over in our life. And we want to go forward, but we're so stuck in our past all the time. Exactly what Samantha said, the devil wants to keep us in our past. And keep reliving experiences. Okay, you had the experience, so what? You had it. You're recreating that experience. It's almost like your body needs the chemical in your brain. And it's its own kind of drug, really. And just a book that's really helped me a lot, you may or may not be familiar with, is Eckhart Tolle. There's two books, Power of Now and A New Earth. And when I started reading that about our thoughts and how we have only this moment exactly, and then a second from now, we're in a new moment. And so we have to let go of those things, and it's so difficult to do that, especially, I think, in relationships. Whether it's family, lover, it doesn't matter. That is probably one of the most difficult areas of life for most of us.
I'm going to give you a quick visual, Sandy, that I was introduced to, oh my gosh, maybe, I don't know how long that's been, 8 or 10 years ago. I was at a self-development type thing, and they had us do this little exercise, and they had a row of chairs facing each other, and on one side of the room was a brick wall. Literally, this is what we were seeing. One side of the room was a brick wall, and on the other side of the room was a mirror. So we were sitting in chairs facing one another. One person was seeing a brick wall, one person was seeing a mirror. And then we were supposed to try to convince each other that there's that's a brick wall, and the other person's going, no, that's a mirror. And that's pretty much what's happening. You can't convince someone to see what you're seeing. Only you are seeing what you're seeing. And especially in situations from the past with our parents. Oh my gosh, when you really consider, this is one place where having grandchildren really helps, because when you look at how tiny they are, like when you're raising children, you see your young kids, but you're also in that parental mode. I don't know, you just see it differently as a grandparent. But when you see these little kids as a grandparent, and you see how, when I think of how he perceived everything that happened yesterday, and then I go back and I look at, how I probably perceived some things, and this is where we're reacting from. Wow, that's why this work is so powerful, so that we can realize, man, that came from a 3-year-old mind, or that came from a 7-year-old mind, or a 12-year-old mind, or 20-year-old mind, or wherever we're bringing it up, And I love Tully's stuff. I think he does an awesome job. But I do think we have to just give them that little acknowledgement that happened, and kiss that boo-boo and let it go away. Because otherwise we can carry some of this stuff forever. But it's so fun once you figure out how to step back and look at it from that outer perspective, it really gets pretty funny. I just laugh hysterically a lot.
Can you see me now? Am I back? Okay, cool. Sorry, guys. You know what? I'm just going to let you guys run with this, because if I cut out again, then you won't hear everything that I have to say. But thanks, by the way, Jason. I did see your comment on there about learning CPR. Yeah, I have only heard about half of what you guys are saying, so I would like to just kind of take it from here and run with it for the rest of the show. Did you freeze up again? Oh, did I freeze again? The only person I see moving is Catherine.
Everybody, well, I think Sandy's moving too. Oh no, maybe she's frozen up. This is the strangest hangout this morning. I have no idea who's hearing what. Thank goodness Jason's out there commenting. I know some of it's getting through.
We'll let Jason run the show for today. Thanks, Jason.
I know. We'll just turn it over to him. Oh, there's Sandy. I see her moving.
Yeah, there she is. Vicky's frozen again.
I do want to cover the technique where it's talking about relaxation, using relaxation to overcome stresses and anxieties, and how it talks about relaxation erecting a psychic screen. And you know, I find that really fascinating, because of course this whole book talks about using meditation and visualization and that sort of thing to accomplish what it is you want to accomplish, and yet at the same time it talks about how just using relaxation can well, it says that what was it I was saying? It was saying that you literally cannot feel stress, anxiety, fear, upset if you're in a relaxed state, because when your muscles, or when you get into anxiety, stress, fear, and all those kinds of things, that all your muscles tense up because you're ready for a response, that fight or flight kind of response. And when you can relax, then that actually helps you to relieve those feelings. And so I think that that's super, super important. And of course it uses multiple different techniques in here, where it talks about of course relaxing and you know, going into a quiet place in your mind, creating kind of a room in your mind that you design that's a quiet, peaceful place where, you know, there's no distractions, there's no nothing, so that you could just kind of retreat into your own mind. And doing that, you know, on a daily basis at least. You know, of course, we talk a lot about meditation and how many of us do it, you know, in the morning, and you know, and in the book it talks about doing it in the morning, doing it in the evening, doing it in the middle point of the day, you know, wherever. And then it also talks about some of the other techniques where it says, you know, when try and just ignore those things that are causing the issue in the first place. So like if we go back to the toilet seat example, you know, in the spousal relationship, is that, you know, you don't have to react to that. You can just ignore it and be like, okay, you put the seat down and be like, is this really a big issue? You know, you just ignore it. Or if you can't ignore it, you know, if you've gotten yourself worked up into, you know, a frenzy so many different times in the past, sometimes it can be difficult to just ignore something, but just to pause and react to it later, just like that counting to 10, or thinking about something else, or just getting busy doing something completely different can just delay that reaction. And sometimes doing the act of delaying the response is enough to break the pattern. Am I frozen again? No? Okay. It is enough to break the pattern so that you don't continue to have that response. You know, and one of the things that I used to do, this is just something, the silliest thing, and this is before I'd ever even done personal development, is that when I'd really get upset about something, I knew that I could change my thought process if I would just think about something else, right? And so I would just stop whatever it was, and I would start singing Jingle Bells in my brain. You know, I would just start singing Jingle Bells to myself. And that, you know, and of course that's the same thing as like counting to 10 or whatever. It just takes your mind, it focuses it on something completely different so that you can relieve, you know, give yourself relief from that stimuli, whatever it happens to be, and also change your habitual thought processes. And then, of course, once I started reading personal development and learning some of these other techniques, I realized what it was that I was doing. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that works. And then I started choosing things that were more productive than singing Jingle Bells. But it worked, you know, and every now and then something will happen, and I will find myself singing Jingle Bells again. But it's, you know, whatever works for you. And that's the key, is to just find something that works for you. If it works for you to, you know, retreat into your mind and just have a quiet moment in your mind, visualizing yourself standing on the beach or in the woods, you know, looking at the breeze blowing around you, whatever. I mean, anything you can do to take a break from whatever it is that's causing you anxiety can help you overcome that habitual response. What do you guys thought? What different things have you done to overcome?
One of the things he talked about here was a speaker that would go and lay down and relax before he went out on stage. And in that area, I totally related, because I've been on stages many times in front of thousands of people, and so I related to. I didn't realize I was doing that until I read that, and that's something I've always done. It puts a calm on you, and you can associate that to anything when you're going to go into a situation. Putting yourself in a mental state of a calm and seeing the situation before it happens a lot of times will change the outcome from a certain behavior of triggers. If you're looking for a positive outcome, you can make that happen by visualizing. It keeps you more peaceful.
Yeah, I like that suggestion as well, and he also talks about having those pre-performance rituals when it comes to, well, anything, you know, whatever you're going to do, whether it's a sporting event. And of course, you use the examples of, you know, like free throw shots and, you know, trying to get the putt into the hole, and of course, you know, speaking on stage, all those different things. And of course, you know, like for me, for example, sometimes when I'm thinking, like the day before we do this Saturday Mastermind, I kind of get this little bit of anxiety in myself going, oh my God, what if it doesn't go right? What if the hangout freezes up and we have all these technical issues, you know? I mean, things like that. And, you know, but what I do is I just go, you know what, it'll be whatever it's meant to be. It'll work the best way that it's supposed to work, and I relax myself physically and imagine that I'm just going to be sitting around the table in the morning with all these wonderful ladies just chatting about this book. And you know, if somebody's out there watching, that's awesome and amazing. And you know, if we can provide insight to other folks as well, then that's great. But I don't think about the possibility that millions of people could be watching. You know, I think that I just imagine myself hanging out with these beautiful ladies and gentlemen every when they jump on, and having just a good Saturday morning, you know, discussion. And
there she goes. Vicki, you're moving right now. I want you to come out and talk while you have some action going there.
Well, you know, I thought that was funny a minute ago. You said, well, move around, and I'm going, well, if I'm frozen, you're not going to see me moving around. Yeah, that's true. You know, I think what I wrote in the chat was, you know, about pattern interrupt. You know, a lot of times we get on to talking about, and we kind of make fun of ADD. You know, it's like you're on this path. Oh, squirrel. You know, is that, you know, that pattern interrupt sometimes really does seem to work. You know, and visualization and all that. I mean, all of it is a process. And you know, I think the biggest thing is to try to recognize when we're going down that, you know, that hole, you know, to try to catch it as soon as possible and do that pattern interrupt or whatever we need to do in order to, you know, to get the response that we need or whatever. And you know, Danielle, I kind of step backwards a little bit about, you know, when you were talking about when you can give a response from coming from within your own power, and that from say love or a good place, then that sometimes it really throws off the people in our life, because there's, like you said, they were so conditioned to seeing you respond a certain way, and then when you didn't, that was kind of cool. So that was, you did like a pattern interrupt with it. That's kind of cool, and I'm glad I'm moving around. I don't know if I'm frozen now or not. I don't know, you know, but anyway, so we're glad Sam's back.
You're invisible, Vicki. Oh, there you are. Frozen.
Yeah, she looked invisible to me as well. It was just like a black screen, but you can hear.
Oh!
I thought it was pretty though.
Yeah.
You must be having internet issues too.
Well,
yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead. I'm muted.
Like, girl. What was I gonna say? I'm doing a one of those lost track of my thoughts. Oh, I was thinking, you know, how, you know, a way that I've noticed to cope, you know, Catherine, you were talking earlier about the physical body, you know, I noticed really it's almost an automatic response, like just being in the presence of particular people. Like with my mom, I get tense, and it's just automatic, even before, you know, anything's said. It's just like this, like, ready to defend, you know, and for me, I found that really connecting to my breath, really just taking a moment, you know, can just be a few seconds where I just look within real quick, connect to my body, connect to my breath, and let it relax. I'm finding that when my body's going into the situation relaxed, I'm able to be more clear. I'm able to really think before I speak and not have those automatic reactions. So I think a good way for me that I found to connect and you know, not have reactions or anxieties or stresses coming on is strong, is to take, you know, moments in those situations where I know I may be triggered to just really connect with the body first and let that relax, and then the mind becomes more relaxed and able to, you know, handle the situations better. So breath for me is a big one.
Most definitely. I cannot tell you how many times I've used the Lamaze techniques through my life, which is like these breathing techniques that you learn when you're going to deliver your baby naturally. I use those for everything, you know. Maybe I might not even be doing it like on the outside, but I'm doing it on the inside, you know. But it's good to have these quick things that we can do to pull ourselves out of it. When you do get a time for some introspection, I would one of the techniques that I've used, it has a name, but it's not readily known, but it's called equilibration. I don't know if any of you have heard of that, but it's not a new concept by any means. But basically what you're doing is, you know, a lot of the stress that we feel in situations, like, oh gosh, I hope I can think of a good example now. Let's say with your mom, Sandy, you might go in to visit her and you might have some feelings like, oh, well, she's trying to control me, so you automatically go into this defense mechanism, like you were saying. So another way to look at that is, you know, how does your mom trying to control you, how does, you know, what's another way to look at that? Like, by you being someone that she can have some control over, what does that do for her? You know, how does you being her child benefit her? You know, it's not, there's always two ways to look at a situation, no matter what it is. Everything has good, or I don't even want to call it good and bad, because it's all good. But everything has what we might consider good or bad or positive or negative, and there's always a spin that you can put on it. Even, you know, my being unable to work outside of the home, when I look at the peace of mind and the friends and the wonderful development that has come out of this physical body situation, I mean, it's all good. That's all I can say. There's always another way to look at it that's good.
I like that you put that perspective, come from their perspective, their viewpoint, and how you're behaving and how they're responding, because we are really privileged to have the opportunity to learn this. So you know, be generous in giving that back to other people from the viewpoint, and then you don't know what that might do for them. So when we come from, again, a point of power of love and understanding, the more we understand ourselves, the more we're able to understand other people. I want to look this technique up, but that just makes so much sense. It really does.
Well, we serve each other through relationship. That's what it boils down to. We serve each other. And although we tend to get sort of, I don't want to call it egotistical, because, I mean, we have an ego. We can't kill our ego off. We need our ego. But we also kind of recognize it sometimes for what it is. You know, but sometimes, and even in this niche, you know, we say, well, people are mirroring for us. Well, sometimes they're mirroring for us. I would definitely agree with that. But sometimes, you know, we really have to consider that it's their lesson that's coming from this as much as our lesson. It's not just our lesson, it's our lesson together, you know, as one big one. And we're just kind of meeting different parts of ourselves and working these things out. But sometimes being like what I see as my weaknesses, I've always been extremely independent, and I've never wanted to accept help from anyone, and that's a huge problem. It's gotten into a lot of, you know, messes. And so getting thrown off the back of a horse and winding up in bed for almost 7 years, I had to accept help from people. You know, it was kind of forced upon me. So you're going to learn these lessons. You can kind of take the easy route, or you can go flying on the back of a horse if you want to. I would recommend the easier route myself. But you know, sometimes being weak, we consider being that needy or weak or something, but sometimes taking that position of weakness allows someone else to be strong, and maybe that's what they needed in their life to give them a sense of purpose in that moment, you know. So don't rob someone of their moment. I'll hush now, sorry. Are you back, Sam? I'm just rambling.
Oh, who knows? I might be back, or I might be off in La La Land. It's hard to tell. I'll tell you what. How about this, Catherine? How about you wrap up for us today? That way, just in case I go wonky again, it won't. It won't. It'll, you know, if you want to wrap it up, that would be really awesome.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to say before we close for today? Everybody's frozen on my screen, so I'm going to go ahead and close this out. I'm sorry we've had some horrendous technical difficulties today, but hopefully you've heard some of it. Thank you, Jason, and let me look over here. Congrats for stepping into the fear, Sandy. Great points, he says. And I'm thinking that using a technique like singing or whistling to get through a moment is okay, but we still have to make time to work through it completely some point later. Yes, Jason, exactly. That's where that equilibration, or looking at both sides of it, really comes in too. So thank you so much. Gretchen, thank you. You said changing my perception is something that helps me as well. Thank you, everyone that came and joined us today, and anyone that's going to be watching later. We really appreciate it, and we encourage you to come be a part of our Mindset Mastery Collective Google community. And you can find our stuff anytime you want now at SaturdayMastermind.com, SaturdayMorningMastermind.com. That way you can keep up with our lessons and our pre-mastermind discussions. And of course, we're here every Saturday morning at 10 Eastern. And we would love to have you on the panel. We'd love to have you join us in reading the new Psycho-Cybernetics. And if you need a copy of that, just contact one of us and we can send you a PDF of that. So until next week, again, thank you for joining us and have a fabulous week. Bye-bye.